Hi, Lloyd Johnson here. And this is the first in a series of tutorials that is going to make a project that I'd like for you to build along with me. We're going to make a globe about the size of a Christmas ornament. It's going to be an open segment project, 180 segments total, and this is a beginner's project. So if you've never made an open segment vessel, this project was made for you. For it, we're going to use my new stomper system and a Seg plate. And if you're not familiar with these terms, there's another video on this site that you may want to check out first, because it's going to talk about the stomper and why it's certainly the fastest and even perhaps the most accurate way to make an open segment vessel. After that, there's going to be a series of videos on cutting the segments. We're going to do one using a miter saw, one using the table saw. There'll be another video on constructing the vessel, turning the vessel, finishing the vessel, and finally we're going to do one that's going to show you how to take professional pictures of it. For that, we're going to build a desktop photo booth. So after you watch a video, I hope that you'll consider coming to the website, woodturnerpro.com, and join the forum. It's free. And I'm going to have a place set up where we're going to discuss this project. And it's a good place for you to ask questions or you to answer questions. If you're a professional at this, it might be a good way for you to share your knowledge with others, and we'd all appreciate that. So sit back and watch this first tutorial on designing the tornado globe. And thanks for watching. So let's get started by going into Google, where I've done a Google search, and then I went to images. And what I was looking for is a circle that has got an outside and an inside wall profile. And this one looks to be pretty reasonable. So I'm going to right click on it and go Save Picture As, and let's put it in our desktop and just call it Circle. And save that, and it's going to save it as a JPEG. So now let's go into 3D Design Pro, and we're going to go Tools, Background Photo, Add. Click on our desktop, and there's that circle. So I'm going to double click on that, and this is the size of it, and we want it to be quite a bit larger. So I'm going to say scale it by 250% and see if that doesn't give us mostly a full screen. So I'm going to grab it and drag it so that it's halfway off, because this is the center line of our lathe. Now with the pencil tool, I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm not going to go clear to the edge. I'm going to start in a little bit. And then I'm going to start just adding some dots. You don't need a lot of them. And then I'm going to come around through the inside. And when I've done my last one, I'm going to right click and say close the spline. So that has given us one continuous spline. Now I'm going to get my move tool, and on the ones that are nearest to the left edge, I'm going to right click and I'm going to change it to an anchor point, because when in 3D Design Pro, whenever you add a dot, it thinks that you're doing a Bezier curve, and then when we get to the inside, we just want to have some sharp lines. So I'm going to right click, anchor, right click and go anchor, and this last one an anchor point. Now I can do some refining of my lines, and once you've got it to where you like it, we're just going to now transfer this into Woodturner Pro. So both Woodturner Pro and 3D Design Pro have to be running. You'll see that this button here says Transfer to WTP Program, and it is available. If Woodturner Pro was not running, this would be grayed out. So I'm going to click on that, and now I'm going to go to Woodturner Pro and tell it what size I want to make it. Now I've picked a size. I want to you can tell it either how tall or how wide, and what I want to do is make this 4.5 inches wide. So now I'm just going to say OK, and that has brought our wall profile into Woodturner Pro. It has already added a disc at the bottom. Since this is going to be an 18 segment vessel, with the Seg plate, you need to, if you're doing 18 segments, make sure that this says 20%, and that's going to create the gaps correctly for that plate. So let's add one row here, and we're going to change it. It's going to be an open segment. The number of segments are going to be 18. Let's do 3/8 of an inch. And that's all we need to do at this point. So let's just start adding new rows. And when we get to the top, we're going to change the top one back to a disc. And now we can go ahead and do a profile snap, and that's going to make everything fit. What we're looking at currently is the cutaway view, so you're looking at the dead center of this vessel. And the cutaway view lets you see both the outside and the inside diameters, as opposed to the vessel view that shows us what it's actually going to look like. So let's go back to the cutaway view, and some things we need to do here is that because of the thickness of this disc, we've got a wider inside profile of this row than we do with its matching one up here. So what we need to do is double click on this one and reduce its thickness. You can hold down your control key and touch your down arrow. If we do a profile snap, what I'm looking to do is to get this roughly lined up with this, and this was close enough, because what we've got now is a 7/16, and up here we've got, change that to a 7/16. I don't want to cut this many boards. Since there's a number of these that are close to the same size, let's make them the same size. So first I'm going to do, let's first work on these first 4. I'm going to double click on this row, and then I'm going to shift click on this row so that we have all of these. Now I want to make these all identical, so there's an easy way to do that, and that's by, in the multi-row resize, we're going to say specific. Now in this case, whatever I do to the anchor row, and the anchor row is the first row that you selected. So there was the first row, this was the last row, but all of these rows are selected. So whatever I do to change this one is going to happen to all of the selected rows. So just by touching my left arrow key, you'll see that it is now forcing those all to be the same. Control right does the same thing for the inside. So there I've made all 4 of these rows be identical, and we're going to build these 4 rows at exactly the same time. Let's do the same thing to this row and this row. So I double click on this row, and now I'm going to control click on this bottom row. Now again, by touching my left arrow, now the outside diameters are the same. Right arrow, now the inside diameters are the same. So what I'm doing now is trying to make sure that I get this and this touching the profile. So now we've got these 2 rows correct. Now on this one, this row and the row next to it, the width of the board is fairly close. So let's make them the same with this one, control and control. So now what I'm going to do is left arrow and then control right arrow, and I'm going to try to look for this point and this point. So I'm going to bring in the inside diameters, and so that means that these are all 4 the same size, but now I'm going to get this row and this row. I want it to be the same size width of board, but it needs to have a different segment edge length. So I'm going to touch my left arrow 1, 2 times, and now control left arrow 2 times. So that means that now this board and this board and this board and this board are all going to be made of exactly the same board. The only difference is they're going to have different segment edge lengths. So we'll do that next. So now the last thing we need to do here is we've made these segments fit the profile. You need more wood that you can turn away. Now I don't want to make this outside diameter any larger because the 4.5 inches is important, but I want to add some to the inside of everything. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to double click on this row and then shift click to get all of the open segment rows. But now instead of specific, I'm going to say uniform. And what that means is that whatever I add or subtract to the anchor row is going to be added or subtracted to the rest of the rows. So I'm just going to hold down my Control key and type my right arrow twice, and what that, each time you do that, adds 1/16 of an inch. So what I've done here now is add 1/8 of an inch to everything, and so I'd say now we're ready to go and build the vessel just this way. Now the last thing we need to do though is we need to go to the vessel view and add our profile. This globe is going to have a tornado pattern on it. So I'm going to simply click once and then go Control click and start adding additional segments. The design on this one is, since we're using an 18 segment plate, I want to have a tornado pattern using 3 different species of wood. Since we are in 18 segments, I want to have the number of repeats per row be 6. So now if I right click on that and say purple heart, what that has done is that has created 6 diagonal patterns on this. So now I'm just going to go next to it, again with Control click, and right click on that, and let's do this one. Oh, you're not going to see this, but it is, I'm going to go walnut. So that is what our design is going to be. So let's do one final thing just to make things easier. I'm going to double click on this row, and let's call this row A, because we're going to use a board width of that is going to be the same as this one down here. So double click on that row, it's going to be A. I'm going to double click on this row and we'll call it B1. This one is also B1. The one above it is B2. This one is B2. And the 4 interior ones are going to be C, 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 and C. Now, if we take a look at the cutting summary, you'll see that it has added those notes on here. So this is just going to give us kind of an easy way to look at this. In the next video, where we start to cut these segments, you're going to be amazed at just how fast you can cut these segments. So with that, I hope you learned something from this, and we'll see you in the next tutorial, which is going to be on cutting segments using a miter saw. Thanks for watching.